I have a confession to make. I can't read. Okay, that's an over-exaggeration, but what I mean is for most of my teen years and now into my early 20s, I have started to have a really hard time sitting down and reading a book. And it's strange because when I was in elementary school, I read it was like the only thing I knew how to do. But now reading specifically with like a physical book in my hands is so taxing to me. I have a really hard time getting comfortable and sitting just for a long time, and I have a hard time keeping focus on what is actually on the page in front of me. And there are probably a couple different reasons for that. I mean, I got my first tablet and smartphone when I started middle school, so the internet brain rot probably started to set in around that time and just killed my attention span. Or it could just be the result of some undiagnosed mental illness that I've probably had my whole life and is just manifested in different ways as I've grown and matured. But so throughout high school and college, most of the reading that I did that was like unassigned for a class was fan fiction. When for me personally, I find fan fiction a lot easier to just jump into, sit down and read in one sitting. But honestly, I think that could be a topic for another video. But nonetheless, I still enjoy storytelling. I mean, one way that I've kind of worked around not reading as much is that I picked up writing again when I got to college. That was also mostly fan fiction, but I am a strong proponent of fan fiction as like a good outlet for community building and creative expression. But again, I digress. That could be a whole other video in itself. But I bring this all up because I think I have finally found my solution. So back in November, December, I was seeing a lot of promotion for the new Percy Jackson and the Olympian series that was going to be on Disney+. And you know, I remember these books from when I was at that age where I was reading all the time. And I remember them being super popular. And I remember when that first movie came out. But I never did actually read those books. My brother did. And I think he read the full original series. But you know, as a preteen girl, my philosophy was you can't like anything your younger brother likes. So I did not read them. But you know, out of curiosity, I watched the first 2 episodes that premiered on Disney Plus of this series, and I found myself actually enjoying it. And you know, I don't know exactly why, but my brain just decided that, you know, I'm gonna read the books. But you know, like I said, I've had trouble sitting down reading a book for years now. But I don't have as much trouble with just listening. And Spotify had, you know, just recently launched their audiobook service for premium users, which I am. So I looked up The Lightning Thief and I hit play. And listen, it's a YA novel about a 12-year-old boy. Is it going to be super relatable to me as a 23-year-old fully grown woman with a full-time job? No, but you know, I've always been a sucker for just like a mythical world building experience and the classic hero's journey. So I liked it, sue me. And I liked it enough to continue with the rest of the series. So I looked up book 2, The Sea of Monsters, and what do I see on the screen but a little lock icon over the play button. Excuse me? I already pay Spotify $10.99 a month for premium access. But if I want to listen to the next book in this series, I have to pay another $17. So I did what any reasonable person would do, and I started a free trial on Audible. Is Audible the best secondary option? Probably not, because that's another $15 per month with one book per month. But you can buy the books ahead of time on there too, and usually they're a few dollars cheaper than Spotify, so that's my justification. Anyway, I finish all 5 books of the original Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, and I know well enough that there are whole other series of books before I can jump into the newest one, Chalice of the Gods. So I do my research. I look up the reading order of how I should read all these different series. And honest to God, I take the first TikTok I see as gospel. So So I found the TikTok of this guy doing a detailed timeline of all these books, and he recommends after you finish the first 5 books in the original Percy Jackson series, you take a detour and you go to the Kane Chronicles, which is about Egyptian mythology. And I swear to God, whichever one, if I knew this man, I would give him my firstborn child. I love the Kane Chronicles so much. I'm really not sure what it is about this series that has me so hooked, because even though it's, different characters and different mythology, different practices of the mythology, how it intertwines into the real world is different than the Greek mythology in Percy Jackson. But honestly, both series follow a lot of the same major plot points. I mean, kids are going on quests, they're meeting up and learning to fight and use magic, and they're battling monsters. In the first book of both of these series, the main characters are on a quest to take down a bad guy, only to be duped in the end and find out the real bad guy is way worse, and he's in a prison and he's trying to escape and he's succeeding. What is the difference between Kronos and Apophis when you think about it? I don't know. The Kane Chronicles is just kind of hitting different for me. I can't really explain it. Carter and Sadie, I love them like they're my own children. Anyway, I swear this gets back to audiobooks, because I listened to the first 2 books of the Kane Chronicles like I had been with the rest of the Percy Jackson series on Audible. And listen, book 2 ends on some pretty interesting notes. I don't know if I'd call them cliffhangers necessarily, but let's just say if I had to wait an extended period of time to find out what happens next, I'd be upset. So the day after I finish book 2, I go back to Audible and I immediately look up book 3, which is the last in the series, by the way. And imagine my shock when I see this message. Not available? What do you mean it's not available? I can't listen to book 3? I am livid. I cannot believe the disrespect that Audible is paying to my children right now. So in a panic, I go back to my roots. I open Spotify, I search for the book, and it's not there either. Where the fuck is this audiobook? I had found such a great system, and now it was all ruined. Unless, frantically, I open my laptop, I navigate to the one safe haven left in this godforsaken country, my local public library's website, and I look up the book, and God has given me one last reason to hang on to hope, because it says they not only have the book, but they have the audiobook. So I immediately apply for a library card, because I probably haven't actually had one since I was in middle school. I have to wait a few days for it to come into the mail, and then I have to wait until I have a day off work so I can go actually look for it. And that day was today. Book and audiobook, all mine until April 1st. I also want to note, these were not in the YA section of the library. They were in the kids section. I, a fully grown 23-year-old woman, had to walk my ass down to the basement of this library into the kids section to get these. It was mildly embarrassing. Anyway, I got both versions of the book so I could do a little experiment. Especially as I've been listening to the Kane Chronicles, Carter and Sadie, as the narrators, have been sort of passing a microphone back and forth to tell the story. So I want to see how that impacts the physical book. Also, I just want to try to start following along as I listen. Normally when I've been listening to the audiobooks, I've just been playing games on my phone to try and keep my eyes occupied, and that's worked for me so far. But when it's late at night and I'm doing that, it's still giving me that screen time and blue light that's really bad for me trying to sleep after I do that. So I'm trying to see if this might help minimize that. I will also say this audiobook is narrated by 2 completely different people than the ones I listen to on Audible. This one says it's performed by Catherine Kellgren and Kevin R. Free. Honestly, it's scaring me a bit because I'm now very attached to the voices I associate with Carter and Sadie of the two other actors who did the ones on Audible. So that might impact my enjoyment of the story, but we'll see. Another problem I seem to be facing is this audiobook is all on CDs, and I haven't owned a CD player since 2011. So I did just order a cheap portable one on Amazon, but it's going to take a few days to get here. So I think I'll have to get creative in the meantime. Anyway, let's let the experiment begin, shall we? Okay, I just came out to the living room to try and set it up so the CD could play through our DVD player, and I just opened the actual book for the first time. And there's a note in here, and the note says, "This is a transcript of an audio recording. Twice before, Carter and Sadie Kane have sent me such recordings, with I transcribed as the Red Pyramid and the Throne of Fire." Are you kidding me? I thought that was a change made for the audiobook. That's insane. I thought that was a change made for the audiobook, and in the physical book, maybe they were writing in a journal. That's crazy. Listening to an audiobook is like the perfect format for that. I'm genuinely shocked. So I guess that's not gonna impact the physical book then. So I wonder if they're still gonna argue about who's got the microphone when. I'm genuinely shocked. I didn't expect that to be the case, but so already off to a good start, I guess. I'm already learning stuff, so. And for this first listening session, we will be joined by world's best boy, my best boy Whisper. Okay, let's test it out. Okay, Whisper and I are ready. Book is here. Looks like we can actually play. I'm assuming track 1 is chapter 1, and so on and so forth. But yeah, let's try it out.
2 hours later.
Okay, 4 chapters in. The first 2 narrated by Sadie, the second 2 narrated by Carter. I have some thoughts. The voice actors are voice acting. They sure are. In the first 2 books that I listened to on Audible, Sadie doesn't really put on a voice for anybody. Carter only does for a couple people, including Sadie and like Horace, but that's pretty much it. All of the characters in this book so far basically have their own distinct voice given to them by either Sadie or Carter. Do I love all the choices so far? No, especially Bast. I really don't like the voice Carter gave to Bast. But, it's still, I was so used to the other way, maybe I'm just still adjusting to it, We'll see how it goes throughout the story. Other thing I'm still adjusting to is that they are pronouncing some of the Egyptian, names and spells differently than the other actors did in the other 2 books. The most jarring one so far is that in the first 2 books, the god of knowledge was pronounced as Thoth, and in this one, it's pronounced Toth, which is interesting. Most of them only differ by a vowel or 2. That one was really jarring to me. And also, I feel like the moon god from the second book, and this is just because I watched Moon Knight, but I was like, it's pronounced Khonshu. And the same thing with the baboon that Carter and Sadie have. Both names start with a KH, but they don't really pronounce the K like they do in the first 2 books. They just pronounce it as an H. So instead of Khufu, the baboon is Hufu. And Khonshu was weird because it was like Hans or something. It was totally different. But yeah, I think most of it I can live with right now. I really don't like Bast's voice. But if that's my biggest gripe with this audio recording so far, I think I can handle it. The other thing is I'm following along in the physical book, and I still find myself kind of getting antsy, trying to read ahead on the page ahead of the recording. I think part of why I like playing phone games when I'm doing this is because it gives me also something to do with my hands, which was missing during this besides like flipping the page. So that might be a bit of a struggle that I didn't account for. Otherwise, some pluses about having the book. You can see the hieroglyphs written out, drawn in the book, so that's cool. Okay, I'm getting set up for day 2. I'm literally in my pajamas. Don't look at that. We're still gonna be on the TV today. The one thing I forgot to mention yesterday because I got cut off, this audiobook it's multiple CDs. So there's 10 discs in total. So disc 1 ended about halfway through chapter 3. There's, I think, like 20 something chapters in the book. So I don't know how it's all gonna fit onto 10 discs. I'm already like in the middle of disc 2 and I'm literally on chapter 5. So we'll see. I just spent probably an hour fixing the DVD player. Can't wait for that Amazon delivery.
Despite what Carter says, I do not wear combat boots all the time, just 90% of the time. The silver tight ammunition.
Okay, after fighting with the DVD player, I managed to get another 2 chapters in. I'm now on disc 3, which is really not helping how I'm 30% into the discs, and I have like 20 chapters to go. So chapters 5 and 6 were both from Sadie's POV, a lot to do with her love life, which is questionable for me, to say the least. I don't know why her options have to be 5,000-year-old god of death or 16-year-old boy who's literally dying. And let's keep in mind Sadie is 13. Sadie is 13. Walt as a character, fine, great. Why is he a 16-year-old boy interested in a 13-year-old girl? Listen, if they were in their 20s, I wouldn't even think about it. 16 and 13? Whatever, I'll get over it. There's still a lot of exposition going on. It's a little slower, I think, than the Throne of Fire so far, because they're setting up about how all this shadow magic is going to work, which I don't totally understand yet, but, you know, we're still in the beginning of the book, so we'll see. Okay, so it's a couple days later. I took a bit of a break because I was waiting for this to arrive. This is the CD player I ordered. Basically, I was really tired of trying to fuck with our DVD player and like breaking it over and over again just to listen to it. And then I have to do it out in the living room and then nobody else can use the TV, so this is just a lot of problems. Also, it's 11:30 p.m. on a Friday night, and yes, I'm showered and ready for bed, and I'm probably going to be in bed listening to this for a couple hours, so we'll see how far I get. I think the plan is to dim my room light so it's not as bright, but I can still see the book, because I'm still going to try to follow along. I could play my phone game. It's very tempting, but I'm going to try to resist. Since the light is dimmed to 15%, I've got the book, and so far the CD player seems to be working, so.
2 hours later.
Update. It is 1:20 in the morning. I have made it to chapter 10. I am tired though, so we'll see how I sleep. Okay, oopsie on my part. I forgot to do an update after my last night reading, and then I forgot to record me reading yesterday, so my bad. So Friday night, is what you just saw. I read before I went to bed, and I slept for 9.5 hours uninterrupted. And then the 3 nights since, I have slept like shit. So I hate to say science is right about screen time, but I think it is. Anyway, I didn't record anything yesterday because I was in a car listening to this audiobook, so I didn't want to freak anybody else out in the car. I got 2 more chapters done in the car. I finished a whole disc, so I think we are on chapter 12 that I'm going to start with today. Special guest star. Okay, I've been at this for about an hour now. I've made a discovery. I tried to switch out to disc 7 and it does not work. It's not my CD player. It played disc 6 and I just tried to swap in disc 8 and that did work. So it's only disc 7 and it's got like an hour and like 15 minutes worth of audio on it. That now I'm just gonna have to sit and read. So I think what the game plan is gonna have to be is I'm just gonna have to read everything that's on this disc, and probably gonna have to listen ahead to where disc 8 picks up and just know that that's where I can stop. I was really trying to avoid having to actually read. But I'll do it. We're in a good part of the story anyway. Okay. It's been like 15 minutes of me trying to figure this out. I think it's the CD player now. So when I originally tried to switch it out to see if it was still working, I put in disc 8 and it played. Like the intro music that plays on the start of every disc played. And I was like, okay, it's just disc 7 then. And then, so when I just tried to start disc 8 to see where in the story it started, I got the same error message that I'm getting with disc 7. So my next train of thought was like, okay, let me check the batteries, right? And I'm using rechargeable batteries, and I plug them into this thing, and they do say they're dying. So that might be part of the issue. Well, here's the thing, is the CD player also came with a little external USB cable that I can plug it into and supposedly get power from. So that is plugged in now. So I tried to put in disc 7 again, and it was still giving me the error message. And then I tried to put in disc 8, and I still got an error message. So what I resorted to is I went into my room and I grabbed a CD, like an actual music CD that I have, and now I have that in the player, and it is still giving me an error message. This is a like brand new, like never before been played copy of 5 Sauce 5. Because I bought it, because I buy all of their albums on CD, and I didn't have a CD player, so it's literally never been played, so it cannot be the CD's fault, because it's literally never been out of its pack. And yet it won't play. So, I don't know if maybe the cord is just not working like it should, and if maybe I should just wait till the batteries recharge to try it again. Whatever the situation is, I'm fucking pissed. I bought this player for a reason, and it doesn't even work. And yeah, could I read the rest of the book just like by myself? Yeah. But I wanted this to be like an experiment. I wanted to see and compare. And it feels like it defeats the purpose of what I was trying to do if I just decide to ditch the audiobook altogether. So what I think I'm gonna do is I guess I'm gonna wait for the batteries to recharge and put them back in the player. Because it was working fine. I literally sat out here for an hour and a half using it, and it was perfectly fine. And it worked perfectly fine in the car yesterday. And like, yeah, I haven't changed the batteries out since I got it, so maybe it's just the batteries. It could be as simple as that. But I guess I'm just gonna have to wait and find out. And then if I put the batteries back in and nothing changes, I guess I'm stuck reading the book. Which, I mean, like, I can read, it's fine, but the whole point of the video was to have the audiobook. And I really don't want to put it in our DVD player again, because that disc tray tends to get stuck. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating. It all comes back to Audible. Why the fuck isn't this book on Audible? Audible, this is all your fault. Nothing against my local library. You guys were great. It's been a couple days. I had to go back to work and I got really busy. CD player, we tried to put new batteries in it. Still did not work. So I guess the rest of the book I'm just gonna finish the old-fashioned way. Okay, time to read. It is finished. So the last clip you just saw of me finally resigning to just actually read the book was the same night that I finished it. Yeah, I read the last 8 or 9 chapters or something in a total of about 2.5 hours. And it's been a few days now. I've had the time to process the story, and I've also had a little time to reflect on this experience as a whole. So I think what I'm going to do is just a quick pros and cons list. Starting with the audiobook, I think a pro is definitely the ability to do something else while I am reading. Even when I had the book in my hands, if I quickly wanted to check my phone or something, I technically didn't have to stop reading altogether. And because the characters are still talking and I'm still getting the story, it's still relatively easy to, when I get back into the book, pick up where the story is. Another pro I'm actually going to say is the voice acting. Although some of the choices I didn't love, bast, but others I thought were really great. Personally, I think the voice that they chose for Setna sounds like Sal from the Impractical Jokers, and I love that. And like I've talked about, these voice actors for Carter and Sadie gave a lot of different voices to a lot of different characters that the other two books didn't do. But even in those first two books, I like giving the characters themselves a voice. It brings a little more life into the story and hearing how an actor would interpret it versus me interpreting it. And a con for the audiobook, I think, is that it's just a lot slower than just picking up a book and reading it. Like I said, I read about 9 chapters in a few hours, and that same chunk of the book would have taken me 2 to 3 days if I was just doing audiobook exclusively. And obviously this is going to depend on everybody's individual reading speed. Maybe mine is just a little bit higher. And I know for digital audiobooks you can change the reading speed. Personally, I don't like to, but that is an option. And I mean, as for the CD player, it would barely even play the fucking thing, let alone change the speed of it. Moving on to the physical book, this is probably going to sound pretty stupid, but I'm going to say a big pro is being able to actually see the text. I think I mentioned in one of those clips earlier that whenever the characters cast any sort of spell, there's actually illustrations of the hieroglyphs on the page. And I just thought that was a nice touch because, personally, I'm not fluent in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, so I don't really know what those look like, and it's hard for me to visualize that if I can't see it. And you know how sometimes when writing dialogue, authors will write the line, but they won't write a tag of so-and-so said after it, because by the time you get to that point, it's established what characters are talking to each other, and maybe you don't always need to say so-and-so said. So sometimes when I'm listening to that part of a book in an audiobook, it's kind of unclear on if that is a different character speaking or if that is just a thought of the character that's narrating, especially if the voice actors aren't doing very distinct voices for every different character. It can be kind of hard to tell. So just having the ability to look at the text and see where the punctuation and indents are to signify that a different character is speaking, weirdly helpful sometimes. You wouldn't think it would be, but it is. I think another pro for the book is just the texture. You saw when I started this that I was kind of looking for something to do with my hands. And honestly, I kind of ended up using the pages of the book as a stim toy almost. Just, casually flipping through the pages, running my fingers over it, when I had a second or felt the urge to just move around. And it was nice to have something physical in my hands and not just my phone. Also, I weirdly forgot how good books can smell. I mean, that probably also sounds weird, but it smells pretty good. So moving on to cons for the physical book, obviously I'm gonna have to say lack of mobility. I mean, I feel like it's been said a bunch of times on the internet throughout the years, how people have a hard time getting comfortable in sitting with a book for a long time. For me personally, I really like to lay down, and I can't really do that with a book unless I'm on my stomach, and that, starts to hurt after about 20 minutes or so. So I have to sit, and usually I have to hunch over and put my neck down, and it just adds to the back pain and stiffness that I already have. With an audiobook, specifically a digital one, I can just put headphones in and lay down. And these headphones that I use are Bluetooth, so I don't even have to worry about getting wrapped up in cords or anything. overall, I would say the audiobook is just a more comfortable experience, physically at least. And I know I just said this was a pro, but seeing the whole page at once is also kind of a con for me. Because my eyes just want to jump all over the page and read ahead when I haven't even finished the paragraph I'm on yet. There's a part in the book where Carter is describing how all the old gods from the House of Rest are coming to their rescue at the Sea of Chaos, and he's describing how, like, a familiar god with the car and in a Speedo is, like, coming, and I look across the page, and it's obviously, I can see that it's Bess coming back. It's like my wandering eyes are inherently trying to spoil things for myself that I will literally find out in another 30 seconds if I could just read in a straight line. So, is this list meant to determine in any way which is better? No, not really. Ultimately, I truly believe it comes down to personal preference. For me, I think I still prefer the audiobook and will probably continue to use Audible or maybe even Spotify if they expand their library a little bit. I think a CD audiobook like this one I probably won't try again, just because it was a bit of a hassle to have to change the discs out all the time. And the track numbers on the discs don't match up with like book chapters really. So most of the time the CD just like stops in the middle of a chapter and I just hear a voice say, "Please insert the next disc." And you know, it is what it is, but it kind of just interrupts the flow of the story for me. So at least on a digital audiobook, it's all segmented by chapter and I can stop at a nice stopping point. But I think if this experiment has taught me one thing, it's that reading a physical book is not as bad as I remember it being. I think all it takes is for me just to get into the mindset of doing it, and that takes a bit like of a mental effort and can seem a little daunting sometimes. But I do think in the end it was a good idea for me to just finish it off by myself. At that point, I knew the characters well and I was reaching the climax of the story, and reading the ending on my own terms was strangely gratifying. And honestly, I think if I ever run into a similar problem again of an audiobook not being available for whatever reason, I will have a lot less hesitation about going to pick up the physical book. Because I do have a library card now, so I guess I have to use it. And really, moral of the story, shout out to public libraries. Mine really came in clutch for this. Book and audiobook, $0. It was a great experience, even if I had to go to the kids section. Okay, well, I guess it's time to return these, and then that TikTok that I mentioned in the beginning said after I read the Kane Chronicles, I should probably go to Heroes of Olympus. Which I have heard a lot about, to say the least. Well, wish me luck, everyone. Thanks for watching. Oh, hi. Did you want to come in and say hello? Hi, baby. What you doing? Can you look up here? Say hi.